Everyone, Chag Sameach. So as we reflect on this final day of Pesach, I want to offer a word of Torah. I want to take us back to April of 1963 in Chicago. Religious leaders and others gathered for a conference on religion and race. And at that conference, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel of the Jewish Theological Seminary, one of the great scholars of the 20th century, he had the honor of introducing Martin Luther King at the conference. And this is how he introduced Dr. King. Dr. Heschel said, at the first conference on religion and race, the main participants were Pharaoh and Moses. Moses' words were, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may celebrate a feast to me." While Pharaoh retorted, "Who is the Lord that I should heed this voice and let Israel go?" Heschel continued, "The outcome of that summit meeting has not come to an end. Pharaoh is not ready to capitulate. The Exodus began, but is far from having been completed. In fact, it was easier for the children of Israel to cross the Red Sea than for a Negro to cross certain university campuses. Few of us seem to realize how insidious, how radical, how universal and evil racism is. Few of us realize that racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for a minimum of reason, the maximum of cruelty for a minimum of thinking. You cannot worship God and at the same time look at a man as if he were a horse. I think this introduction is fitting as we conclude the Festival of Freedom. And also, today is April 4th. It's 53 years since Martin Luther King was assassinated. At the Seder, a few nights ago, we declared, B'chol dor vador, chayav adam lirot et atzmo, ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. In every generation, a person must see himself as though he personally had gone out from Egypt. Let's just imagine that Rabban Gamliel, who made that declaration, let's imagine that every human being deserves to see himself or herself as going to freedom. And that statement is not just about us. It's not just about Bnei Yisrael. In our country, I believe we have done much for civil rights. And I think that there is still more to do. As Dr. Heschel said, racism is insidious and must be guarded against in every generation, including ours. I am disturbed over a story I heard this week. On Tuesday, a 65-year-old Filipino immigrant was walking down a street near Times Square when a man in broad daylight suddenly kicked her in the stomach and in her head repeatedly. And he swore at her and he yelled, "You don't belong here." As the violent scene unfolded, 3 men watched from the lobby of a nearby luxury apartment building. When the woman struggled to stand up, one of the men, who was a security guard, he closed the front door to the building. He didn't do anything. I think about what that man yelled at that Filipino immigrant. "You don't belong here." And it seems to me that we've heard that same taunt again and again over the course of many generations wherever we've lived. You don't belong here. On Passover, we celebrate freedom. But again, I have to ask us, I have to address our consciousness. Is this freedom only for us? Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote that the Haggadah's word for freedom is cherut. Cherut, according to Rabbi Sachs, is a collective freedom, a society in which my freedom respects yours. And during the Seder we say, L'shana haba'a b'nei chorin. Next year, may we be free people. The Hebrew word chorin comes from the same root, cherut. And so Rabbi Sachs teaches that this statement, may we be b'nei chorin, free people, is an aspiration. May we be free, but may we also build a just society where everyone's freedom is respected. I think about that statement, B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim, that we're all supposed to see ourselves as if we march to freedom. Rabban Gamliel, when he said that, I hope I'm not putting a thought in his mouth, maybe I am. He didn't say, B'chol Yehudim, every Jews see themselves that way. He said, B'chol Adam, every human being, every person. We all deserve to live a life of respect and freedom, including that Filipino immigrant who was knocked down and beat up. During the pandemic, we've seen a troubling rise of hatred, anti-Semitism, racism against African Americans, racism against Asian Americans, and others. We still have work to do. Next year, may we be free people, b'nei chorin, in the spirit that Rabbi Sachs taught of, that may we be free and may we honor the freedom of everyone. Thank you. Chag Sameach.